The portal drops Oren Vassal in the middle of a field with no warning, no tutorial, and no pants that fit the fantasy world's climate. Around him, 40 other people from his office building are getting the rundown from a glowing herald who looks like someone stapled wings to a government clerk. Classes. Awakening. The Keldarin Kingdom's Grand Adventurer Registration System. Everyone steps forward and gets scanned. Oren steps forward last. The herald's light flickers. Then the readout appears. Collector, non-combat utility class. No offensive skill trees. Recommended role, supply labor. Someone laughs. Then 3 more people laugh. By the time the herald awkwardly clears his throat, half the group is already turning away. Guild Master Rael Dorn of the Ironclad Adventurers, the men who'd been recruiting in the field since the portal opened, walks up, looks at the readout, and doesn't even pause. Not our problem. Supply labor reports to the Civic Depot. Next. Oren doesn't argue. He'd read enough Manhwa to know that arguing in this moment is a waste of breath. He picks up his pack, walks to the Civic Depot, and waits. He waits for 2 days. Nobody comes to assign him to anything. On day 3, Rael's assistant drops by the depot with a written notice. The Ironclad Guild is requisitioning Oren's ration card for guild operational needs. In plain language, they're taking his food share and giving it to fighters. Oren is instructed to source his own provisions. He is left, officially, with nothing. Not a coin. Not a ration. Not a guild hall bed. Just a pack, a collector class nobody wants, and a road that leads to a village called Ash Hollow, which, the notice cheerfully adds, is scheduled for reduced administrative support due to insufficient combat-ready population. Oren reads that last line twice. Then he shoulders the pack and starts walking. Ash Hollow is worse than the notice described. The fields are half dead. The granary holds enough for maybe 2 weeks. There are 34 children under the age of 12 and 18 adults too old or too injured to fight. The able-bodied adults who could have hunted left 3 weeks ago to join guild recruitment drives. None came back, they were absorbed into the system and reassigned. The village elder, a woman named Daya, meets Oren at the gate with the expression of someone who has run out of things to hope for. "You're from the portal?" she asks. He nods. She looks at his pack, his class readout on the open registry tag at his collar. Her expression doesn't change, but something behind her eyes does. "We don't have food to spare for guests." "I'm not a guest," Oren says. "I'm here to help." She almost smiles. She doesn't, because she doesn't believe him. But she lets him in. That night, Oren takes his last remaining item, a single bread roll from his own pack, and splits it between 2 children who haven't eaten since morning. He keeps nothing for himself. He doesn't do it for a system. He doesn't know there is one. He just does it because they're hungry and he has something and they don't. The system notices anyway. Provider's mark, hidden class unlocked. Activation condition, pure giving, complete. Resources at 0. Recipient in greater need. Welcome, first provider. The table begins here. Oren stares at the notification floating above his hand for a long moment. Then he reads the subfunctions. Infinite catch, guaranteed maximum yield hunt from any terrain within range, scaling with total mouths fed to date. Current yield multiplier, 1.2 times. Current fed count, 2. Preservation lock, all food within a 500-meter radius of the host does not spoil. Passive. Always active. Feast architect, any creature processed by the host can be prepared as a dish that temporarily elevates the consumer's physical stats for 24 hours. Effect scales with host's total fed count. Kingdoms table, locked, unlocks at 1000 fed, passive aura causes all crops within a 2-kilometer radius to permanently triple in yield. Irreversible once active. Oren reads it again. Then he sets his pack down, picks up the hunting tools the village keeps in a rusted crate by the gate, and walks into the forest alone. He is a collector. He has no combat abilities. He cannot fight. He doesn't need to. The infinite catch passive doesn't care about combat. It cares about terrain, timing, and quantity. Oren walks into the dark, follows the instinct the skill threads into him like a compass needle, and finds a boar. Then two. Then a full nest of river fish, practically leaping at his hands. By dawn, he's dragging back more meat than Ash Hollow has seen in a month. Daya is standing at the gate when he returns. She doesn't say anything. She just stares at the hall. I need help processing this, Oren says. She calls everyone who can stand. They eat that morning for the first time in 3 days. Hot food. Real food. Oren moves through the village cooking pot by pot, using the feast architect subfunction on every dish. He doesn't announce it. He doesn't explain what's happening. He just cooks. By afternoon, the older adults are moving more easily. The children have color in their faces. One of the injured hunters who'd limped back to the village 3 weeks ago with a broken leg stands up and walks 10 steps without wincing. Fed count, 52. Infinite catch multiplier updated, 2.6 times. That night, Oren goes back into the forest. He comes back with more. He goes every night. The infinite catch multiplier climbs, 5 times, 12 times, 31 times. The preservation lock keeps everything fresh. The feast architect turns every meal into something that quietly, incrementally rebuilds every person in Ash Hollow. Bones knit faster. Muscles remember themselves. The children start running instead of shuffling. On day 14, 2 of the men who'd left for guild recruitment come back, rejected for being too old, reassigned back to their villages with a form letter. They arrive expecting to find a dying settlement. They find a smokehouse full of cured meat, a granary at 80% capacity, and 34 children who could outrun them on a good day. Oren feeds them. The multiplier jumps again. Fed count, 341. Infinite catch multiplier updated, 17 times. Word travels the way that word always travels in places where people are starving. Quietly, desperately, and fast. On day 31, a family of 5 arrives from a neighboring settlement. Their fields had flooded. They had nothing. Oren's table has enough for 10 times that. On day 45, a party of low-rank hunters stumbles into Ash Hollow after a botched dungeon run, injured and out of supplies. Oren feeds them, and something happens. Their wounds are dressed, their food is hot, and the stats the feast architect threads into every dish push their healing timelines forward by days. One of them, a B-rank hunter named Kale Sorn, looks at his status panel after eating and stares at the temporary buff line for a long time. Then he looks up at Oren. What did you put in that? Boar flank, Oren says. The secret is resting the meat before you slice it. Kale stares at him. Then he laughs. Then he tells his party. Then 3 days later, he sends word to 6 other hunter parties operating in the region. On day 51, there are 11 hunter groups camped near Ash Hollow, not to fight, but to eat. They bring in their own catches, their own materials. Oren cooks. They leave stronger, faster, and with buffed stats that last a full day longer than any standard potion. The village grows. Tents become structures. Structures become buildings. The preservation lock keeps every supply depot the village opens running without loss. New fields go in. The granary doubles in size, then doubles again. Fed count, 891. Infinite catch multiplier updated, 44 times. Oren is standing at the edge of the field on day 61, watching the expanded village settle into its evening rhythm, when a registry courier arrives with a sealed notice from the kingdom's administrative board. He opens it. The kingdom's central supply chain, managed by the Ironclad Guild under a contract signed at the portal's founding, has begun to fail. 3 consecutive quarterly shortfalls. Regional depots running at 40% capacity. The board is inquiring whether any settlement in the eastern region has surplus to report. Oren reads it once. He files it. Then he goes back to cooking dinner for 891 people. Kingdom's table, unlocking in 109 mouths. He knows. He's been counting. Day 72. Fed count, 987. The Eastern hunters know now, the Ash Hollow provider is real, and his table is the best-kept military secret in the region. B-rank and C-rank parties are rotating through on a schedule. Each one leaves buffed and provisioned. Several have quietly begun operating out of Ash Hollow as a base, paying for the privilege in materials, labor, and scouting information. The village has a wall now. It has a second granary. Dia runs the administrative ledger with the calm efficiency of someone who has decided to stop being surprised by miracles. Day 88. Fed count, 999. Oren is standing in the field. The 1,000th person to sit at his table is a child, a girl named Sef, 7 years old, daughter of a hunter party who arrived from the Western Road 3 days ago. She holds out her bowl with both hands, the way children do when they've been taught that food is serious. Oren fills it. The system notification comes the moment she takes her first bite. Kingdom's table, active. All crops within 2,000 meters of the host will permanently triple in yield. This effect is irreversible and non-transferable. Congratulations, first provider. Classification, above registry. Note, the registry does not have a designation for this class tier. You have been assigned a provisional label. Provisional label, sovereign table. Oren looks at the field. He watches the crops shift, visibly, measurably, as the passive aura settles in. The rows of grain, still 2 weeks from harvest, swell visibly at their bases. The orchard trees at the field's edge drop 3 times the blossoms they held the morning before. Dia watches it happen. She puts her hand over her mouth. Oren puts his hand on her shoulder. Call the builders, he says. We're going to need a third granary. The Ironclad Guild's central supply contract with the Keldarin Kingdom collapses officially on day 89. Guild Master Rael Dorn has been managing the shortfall with transfers and accounting tricks for 2 months. When the capital's winter stockpile registers at 31% capacity, less than half the contractual minimum, the kingdom's administrative board sends a formal notice of breach. Rael has one option. He knows, because his network of couriers knows, where the surplus is. On day 91, Rael Dorn arrives at the gates of Ash Hollow with 300 guild members, 12 supply wagons, and a letter of introduction from the kingdom's administrative board. The gate guard, a former injured hunter who could barely walk 7 weeks ago and now manages the eastern checkpoint, looks at the letter. Looks at the column of guild members stretching back down the road. Looks at Rael. Name of your party? Guild Master Rael Dorn. Ironclad Adventurers. We're here to negotiate a provisional supply contract. The guard checks his roster. You're not on the schedule. Provider's table is for registered settlements and active hunting parties. You'll need to submit an access request. Rael stares at him. The form, the guard adds, takes 2 business days. Rael waits 2 business days. He and 300 guild members camp outside the gate in the rain. They do not have the preservation lock. Their food runs low on the second evening. Rael sends a personal appeal. The gate guard accepts the letter and says he'll pass it along. On the morning of day 93, Oren walks to the gate himself. He doesn't rush. He stops at the main kitchen to check the morning prep. He greets Sef on her way to the village school, they built a school, and answers a question from Dia about the third granary's storage allocation. Then he walks to the gate, opens it, and looks at the column of guild members waiting in the mud. He finds Rael immediately. Rael is older looking than Oren remembers. He is standing in the front of the column with a sealed trade agreement already prepared. They look at each other. Rael opens his mouth. Closes it. Opens it again. The kingdom needs supply capacity, he says. Your village is the only settlement in the eastern region running at surplus. I'm prepared to offer a generous contract. Ironclad guarantees distribution infrastructure, security escort, and... I know what you're prepared to offer, Oren says. Rael stops. I read the kingdom's supply chain registry. Your distribution routes are aging. Your security escorts have 3 grade C breaches per quarter. Your accounting on the winter stockpile shortfall is still listed as under review. Oren tilts his head. I'm not interested in your infrastructure. I have my own. What I need from you is labor, 60 workers for the third granary build, rotating quarterly, and a signed acknowledgement from the Ironclad Guild that Ash Hollow's supply contracts take administrative priority over guild discretionary requisitions. That includes ration cards. The silence from the column is total. Rael's face does something complicated. That's my offer. You can counter, but I'll tell you now, I'm not moving the number. Another silence. Longer this time. Rail reaches into his coat. He pulls out his personal seal, the Ironclad Guild's mark, the same mark that had appeared at the top of the notice that stripped Oren's ration card on day 3. He sets it against the form. He presses. He kneels slightly as he does it, a small involuntary bow of the head over the document. He straightens immediately and hands it across, but the moment has already happened. Oren takes the document. He checks the seal. He folds it and hands it to Daya, who has appeared at his left elbow because Daya appears at his left elbow whenever anything important happens. Gates open, Oren says. He turns and walks back toward the kitchen. There is a meal to prepare. 891 residents. 300 guild members, starting today. The morning yield from the kingdom's table fields is already coming in, triple rate, every row, irreversible. He has a lot of mouths to feed. Fed count, 1,191. Infinite catch multiplier updated, 59 times. The gate opens. The column files in. Raildorn walks through last, into the settlement that was scheduled for reduced administrative support 91 days ago, looking at a granary 3 times the size it should be, at crops that glow faintly gold at the roots, at children running between the buildings with more energy than any B-rank hunter on the guild's payroll. He does not ask to speak to Oren again. Oren doesn't notice. He's already at the stove.